Let's talk about the immigrant's kid. Hi, I'm Jim Hacking, immigration lawyer practicing law throughout the United States out of our offices in St. Louis, San Diego, and Washington, D.C. You know, sometimes an immigrant comes to the United States and falls in love with a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, and the couple wants to get started on getting that immigrant a green card to stay in the United States. Well, what happens if that immigrant has a child either overseas or here in the United States? So there's a lot of moving parts here, and we're going to try to cover them all in this video. So the first thing I think you need to understand is that the U.S. citizen is going to have priority filing for that child more so than the immigrant themselves. So in theory, you could do it this way. The U.S. citizen could file to get a green card for the foreign-born spouse. The spouse eventually gets their green card probably 2 years later, and then they could, as a lawful permanent resident, file to bring their child here from the old country. But that could take 3 years in and of itself, and that might be very slow, and the child might age out. So a better approach might be to file the I-130 for the immigrant spouse and also to have the U.S. citizen file an I-130 for the child overseas. Now, usually those two cases will start to run in tandem. In other words, it's unlikely, although it has happened, that USCIS has approved the I-130 for the child overseas before they approve the I-130 for the foreign-born spouse who's here in the United States. That's rare, but it does happen. Most likely what happens is, in the child's case, the agency waits to see if the petition by the U.S. citizen for the immigrant spouse gets approved. In other words, they don't want to approve the kid for a green card or an immigrant visa to get a green card before awarding a green card to the spouse. So a lot of times that kid's case will go a whole lot slower. One thing you have to keep in mind is that the relationship between the U.S. citizen and the foreign-born spouse has to result in a marriage before the child turns 18. If they turn 18 before the couple gets married, then they're going to be too old to come on that new petition on the relationship between the foreign-born spouse, their mother or father, and the U.S. citizen. In other words, they have to make sure that the marriage occurs before the child turns 18, and you want to get that case filed as soon as possible because you don't want the child to age out. Now, if the petitioner is a green card holder, things are a little bit different. The petitioner could file for their spouse who's here in the United States, but that's going to be tricky now because of the backlog. So when a green card holder wants to try to pull this off, it's a lot harder. Now, sometimes you have a green card holder here with a spouse overseas and a child overseas. On those applications, everybody can be included in one I-130. If it's a U.S. citizen filing for a spouse overseas and their child, they have to file separate I-130s for each young person, and the parent. So let's say that Mary's a U.S. citizen, she marries John back in the home country, and John has a kid named Alfred. If Mary is a U.S. citizen, she has to file one I-130 for John and one for Alfred. If she is a lawful permanent resident, she's going to want to file just one I-130. But here's the trick. Because of the backlog and because green card cases of people sponsoring their loved ones for green card holders are taking so long, it's most likely going to be only when the U.S. citizen, the petitioner becomes a U.S. citizen, that the family is going to be able to come to the United States. So at that point, you're going to have an I-130 for each person because it's sort of tricky. If the petitioner here in the United States becomes a citizen from a green card, then that rule changes because now they're trying to sponsor immediate relatives under the I-130 provisions, and they're going to need a separate I-130 for each person. So our general advice is if you are a lawful permanent resident and you are filing for your spouse and a child overseas, you want to file a separate I-130 for each of them, even though you don't have to, because most likely it will not be until you become a citizen that either of them get to come. And so therefore you want to have that I-130 on file for the child so that when you naturalize, you don't have to start from scratch at that point and try to file an I-130 for them at that stage. It's very problematic, and we've seen a lot of people screw that up where they're very, very excited because they become a U.S. citizen, but then they realize, oh crap, I have to start all over for this kid, and I could have filed an I-130 for them a long time ago, and then they're trying to get the I-130 for the kid to catch up to the I-130 for the mother or father, and it's a big old mess. We love working on these cases. We love working on I-130s away and I-130s here. We love helping people get green cards for their loved ones. This is what we do at Hacking Immigration Law. If you'd like our help, feel free to give us a call at 314-961-8200 or email us info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com. If you're just looking for free resources, we have a bunch of those. We're happy to provide those to you. One is our Immigrant Home Facebook group. We have about 15,000 people in that group talking about the immigration process every day. We have our YouTube channel where I have hundreds and hundreds of videos and over 700 live shows where I just answered questions for an hour and we recorded them. You can go back and listen to those if you like. You can also join us on that show. It's called the Immigration Answer Show. We'd love to have you join us there. It's a show that I do live 2 or 3 times a week in Facebook and YouTube, and you can subscribe to the channel. And if you want to get in there to ask me a question for free, just text the word SHOW, SHOW, to 314-470-3300. Finally, if you're not following us on TikTok, I run that channel with my daughter, Noor, and we'd love to have you follow us on TikTok. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next video.